Hello everyone, this is Ma'am Asenjo. Welcome to our second lesson in Science 7 about solutions. Now get your science notebook and take down the important points. What does a brass, bronze, salt water, air, and Gatorade have in common? Now, they're examples of solutions. What are solutions? They are homogeneous mixtures containing two or more substances. A solution can exist as a solid, liquid, or gas. Surprised? Usually, people think of solutions as some liquid with either a solid or a liquid or a gas dissolved in it. However, this is not entirely true. We can also have solid solutions like alloys. Alloys are homogeneous mixtures of metals. They cannot be separated into their individual components by physical method. For example, brass is a mixture of 30% zinc and 70% copper. Copper and zinc are so well mixed that all parts of the brass appear the same. Next example is the salt water. Salt water is water with salt in it. As you can see, the water and the salt are so well mixed that all parts of the salt water appear the same. Also, we cannot separate salt from the salt water through filtration because their particles are so small that they pass through the filter paper. Next example is the bronze. Bronze composes of 12% tin and 88% copper. As you can see, the copper and the tin are so well mixed that all parts of the bronze appear the same. Next example is the Gatorade. As you can see, the Gatorade is clear and transparent. It composes of water, sucrose, and salt. Components are so well mixed that all parts of the Gatorade appear the same. Our next example of solution is air. Air composes of nitrogen, oxygen, hydrogen, and methane. What makes air a solution? This time, can you answer it on your own? Let us now summarize the properties of solutions. First, it is homogeneous. That means a mixture of one phase only. The components are so well mixed that all parts of the solution appear the same. Second property is that the solute cannot be separated from the solvent through filtration because they are so small that they pass through the filter paper. The third property of solution that you need to learn in grade 7 is that it is often clear and transparent. Now, let's proceed to the components of a solution. The solution has two components. We have solvent and solute. The solvent constitutes the larger component of the solution, while the solute is the smaller component of the solution. In this salt water solution, water is the solvent and salt is the solute. Again, the solute is the smaller component of the solution, whereas the solvent constitutes the larger component of the solution. Later on, we're going to mix salt with water and we'll have the salt water solution. Now let's investigate properties of unsaturated, saturated, and supersaturated solution. Okay, we have here our visitors. Please do listen to him properly.
When we talk about solutions, solutions can either be unsaturated, saturated, or supersaturated. So what is the difference between each one of these? Well, let's take a look at what an unsaturated solution is. We have three beakers that are sitting here. In this first one here, we have an unsaturated solution. In the second one, we're going to end up having a saturated solution. And in this third one here, we're going to end up having a supersaturated solution. So what is an unsaturated solution? In an unsaturated solution, we've got a solution that has not quite reached its saturation point. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's suppose I have some salt here in this little salt shaker, and we shake out just a little bit of salt in here, and we go ahead and we stir it up, right? We're going to stir this salt up, right? Well, it hasn't quite reached the total amount of solute that can be dissolved in it. It is considered to be unsaturated. If I wanted to, I can still continue to add more and more salt and stir this little solution up, and the salt will dissolve in it no problem. Alright, so an unsaturated solution is a solution in which you can still add more solute to the solution and continue to dissolve it more. In a saturated solution, we have a solution in which the solution has reached its limit of the amount of stuff that can be dissolved in it. So let's suppose I continue to shake and shake and shake more and more and more and more salt out of this salt shaker. I keep stirring it, I keep stirring it, and I keep stirring it, and it keeps dissolving and it keeps dissolving. Well, there will become a point at which no more salt can dissolve in this solution, no matter how much we stir it, no matter how much we break apart the salt crystals into smaller little crystals. There's going to be a limit to the amount of salt that can be dissolved in this little beaker of water here. And eventually what's going to end up happening is we're going to have a pile of salt that will begin to develop at the bottom of this little beaker right here. Okay? In this example here, we will have a saturated solution. The solution has reached the limit of the amount of solute that can be dissolved in it. Alright, so that is what a saturated solution is. In a supersaturated solution, here's what we end up having. We take a beaker of water, and what we're going to do is we're going to raise the temperature of this water. So we're going to increase the temperature of this water while we're dissolving more and more salt in here. So we're going to continue to dissolve more and more salt, and in fact, as we'll learn later on in this unit, as you increase the temperature of a solution or the solvent, you can in fact dissolve more and more solute. So by raising the temperature of this solution here, or of this solvent here, we're going to be able to dissolve more and more and more, way more solute than we did over here into this solution. So what we're going to do is we're going to continue dissolving more and more and more of this salt in this beaker of water right here, as we continue to raise the temperature. And then what we're going to do is we're going to end up cooling the temperature, or we're going to end up cooling the temperature of this solution. Okay, so at first we're going to start to raise the temperature, we're going to add a ton of this salt or solute to this solution, and then we're going to cool this solution down. And what ends up happening is you have a tremendous amount of solute dissolved in this solution here, and as you cool the solution down, what ends up happening if you add more and more of this salt to it is that the solution, the salt ends up falling out of the solution, or the salt will end up precipitating out of the solution, and what we'll end up having is a bunch of crystals that will ultimately end up forming, just like we see right here. Alright, so unsaturated solutions haven't quite reached the limit of the amount of solute that can be dissolved in them. In a saturated solution, you have reached the limit of the amount of solute that can be dissolved in the solution, and you'll typically see this pile up at the bottom, kind of like an old bowl, or not an old bowl, but a bowl of Cheerios that you're going to eat, right? You pile on the sugar, or some cornflakes, you pile on the sugar, and what's left over, a saturated solution of milk and sugar at the bottom, right? And over here we have a super saturated solution, right? We've got a solution in which we've raised its temperature, we're able to dissolve a lot more salt than we normally could have, and then we end up cooling the temperature down, and what ends up happening is that if you continue to add more at that cooler temperature, the solute might precipitate out and form some sort of crystal structure in that little beaker.
Alright, let us summarize. Unsaturated solution contains less than the maximum amount of solute that can be dissolved at that temperature. Saturated solution contains the maximum amount of solute that will dissolve at that temperature. Any further addition of solute will result in undissolved solid on the bottom of the container. Supersaturated solution contains more than the maximum amount of solute that can be dissolved at that temperature. It is unstable and the solute will usually begin to crystallize, especially if disturbed. Now let's proceed to the concentration of solutions. The concentration describes the relative amounts of solute and solvent in a given volume of solution. When there is a large amount of dissolved solute for a certain volume of solvent, the solution is concentrated. A dilute solution has a small amount of dissolved solute in comparison to the amount of solvent. Now that you have distinguished dilute from concentrated solutions qualitatively, you can express concentration in other ways such as percent by volume and percent by mass. Percent by mass, or mass percent, is the mass of the element or solute divided by the mass of the compound or solution. The result is multiplied by 100 to give a percent. On the other hand, volume percent is a measure of the concentration of substance in a solution. It is expressed as the ratio of the volume of the solute to the total volume of the solution multiplied by 100. Let us now have the calculation for sample problem on mass percent and volume percent. Let us read first the given problem. 15 grams of NaCl was dissolved in 225 grams of water. What is the mass percent of NaCl in the solution? Okay, first, you need to identify the given in the problem. So, recall the formula for mass percent. We need solute and solvent. Just recall also that solute is the one that is present in lesser amount than the solvent. Of course, the solvent is present in larger amount. So in this case, the solute is the NaCl and the solvent is the water. Okay? Recall also that solute plus solvent is equal to the solution. And, okay, recall the formula for mass percent. It's mass of solute divided by the mass of solution times 100%. So, since you have already the solute, which is 15 grams, okay, you just substitute. So, I'm going to write it in the numerator portion. Okay, then the denominator should be solution. So, all you have to do is you add the solute, which is 15 plus 225, you have 240 grams. Then, times 100% using your calculator. Okay, so you need to have a calculator in this part. Okay, so the answer is 6.25%. That is our mass percent. Now let's have another sample problem for volume percent. Let us read first the problem. A volume of 80 milliliter of ethanol is diluted to a volume of 250 milliliters of water. Find the percent by volume. Okay, so what is asked? That's percent by volume. Then we have the given 80 ml of ethanol and 250 ml with water. So 250 ml with water is already the volume of solution, and 80 ml of ethanol is the volume of solute. Recall the formula for percent by volume. It's volume of solute divided by volume of solution. Okay, so just substitute them in the given. Volume of solute is 80 ml. Volume of solution is 250 ml. Just substitute in the given formula. Then multiplied by 100% using your calculator, you have the answer, which is 32% by volume. Okay, so that's the shortcut for percent by volume. So what does it mean? This means that if you had 100 ml of the solution, 32 ml of it would be ethanol. Okay, so those are the sample problems in calculating mass percent and volume percent. Alright, so this time let's proceed to the factors affecting how fast a solid solute dissolves.
About factors that can affect the rate of dissolution. What does this word mean right here, dissolution? Well, you can just think of this word right here as the same thing as dissolving. So we want to look at factors that affect the rate of dissolving a solute and a solvent. So we have a beaker of water right here. Here's my beaker of H2O. And we have a sugar cube right here. If I simply place this sugar cube in this water right here, it's going to float to the bottom. It's going to float to the bottom here because it's more dense than water. And it's just going to sit there, right? It might be quite some time before this sugar cube ends up dissolving. But what can I do to speed up the rate of dissolving this sugar cube in this water here? Where there are three factors that affect the rate of dissolving a solid solute in a liquid solvent. Okay, what are those three factors? Well, let's take a look. What I can do is I can take a hammer to this sugar cube here. I can smash it all up into this pile right here. And basically what I've done is I've increased the surface area. So the first thing I could do is I can increase the surface area of the sugar, and now if I take this and I dump it in this beaker right here, it's going to have a lot better time, or a lot better ability to dissolve in this water right here, right? So what's the second thing I can do to increase the rate of dissolving? I can take this little stir rod right here and stir up this solution, right? If I stir up the solution, from prior experience we know that this sugar will dissolve in this water, right? If you get a glass of tea at a restaurant and you ask for some sugar packets, just dumping those sugar packets in there isn't going to really do much. But if you grab a spoon and start stirring that mixture up, you'll notice that that sugar is going to dissolve. So a second way that we can increase the rate of dissolving a solid solute in a liquid solvent would be to stir it. And third and finally, what we can do is put a little flame under here. We can heat this solution up, right? If we heat this solution up, this sugar in this solution of sugar water is going to have a lot easier time dissolving. So increasing the temperature will increase the rate at which this sugar will dissolve.
In summary, the factors affecting how fast a solute dissolves are stirring, particle size, temperature, and type of solute. Alright, so I hope you learned a lot this time. So this is Mom Asenjo again. See you on our next topic. Don't forget to subscribe.